Howdy.
What's up, y'all? I don't know what's going on here. Anyway, how you guys doing this evening?
These like secret coach signals? I mean, what are we doing here, Bruce?
Yeah, they are. I'm trying to give some signals. I was trying to do what Brian's doing, but missing my finger sometimes makes it complicated. It doesn't work right. I don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Can you do that?
With this hand I can. Not with this one. How could I do it with that one?
Yeah, it's all.
Anyway, welcome aboard again tonight, guys. Just glad to have y'all in here and everyone in the chat tonight for another Stream Team Beekeeping Chat. We are well into 2026 already. And it's crazy. It's already the 21st of January. It seems like just yesterday it was Christmas, and then New Year's Day we had a wedding, and here we are 3 weeks later, and we're just moving on in here quickly. I know you guys up north are experiencing a lot of cold weather. We got some cold weather too. Here we got some snow actually Sunday morning. Believe it or not, it was I think we got 1 to 2 inches of snow, and they canceled church. And by the time church would have started, mostly it melted off. But that's just how we roll here in Alabama. Anyway, so but yeah, it's obviously we're in wintertime, and a lot of people aren't really doing a whole lot with the bees. But it's coming up on us quick. It'll be here before we know it. So what's going on with you guys? How you doing up there in Northeast Ohio, Brian?
Not too bad. I mean, today was the warmest day that we're probably going to have in about 2 weeks. We hit we're 35 degrees right now. So in the next 2 weeks, though, we're not even going to break 20 degrees, they said.
Oh my gosh. Just like last year.
We've got 2 days where the high is going to be in the single digits, like 7 degrees, 5 degrees, something like that. We're going to be -3 is a low on between like Saturday going into Sunday. And then they're saying like 30 to 40 mile an hour wind gusts also. So
yuck.
When it's like -3 and there's 30, 40 mile an hour wind gusts, I don't even know what the wind chill will be, you know?
Yeah.
So
you're not getting in your bees right now is what you're trying to say.
No. And I'll tell you, I think I'm lucky. The last time I went over, any of the colonies that had like a significant portion of the hive alive gone, I kind of shimmied it back some and just put another one. So the larger ones that were really hammering down on that fondant, they've got 2 of them in there. So I just figured, you know what, put it in there, let them go for a month or so. And I think it was probably wise that I made that decision just to do that ahead of time. So, because there's absolutely no beekeeping up here now, other than, if you want to prep equipment, do things like that, order equipment, this is the time of the year to do all that kind of stuff. So, order packages, maybe from somebody down in Hopewell, Ohio.
If you haven't got it order, you better do it.
That shameful plug.
Yeah. See, look at that plug there.
Well, Greg, how about you? I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say there's nothing happening up here.
Yeah, Greg, I know you're busy. Cold, rain, shine, or snow, you got stuff you got to be doing right now. It's a busy time for you. Yeah, what's going on up there at Hopewell, Ohio?
Yeah, we're bleeding dollar bills and lots of them every day just to try to heat the shop, heat the warehouse, try to keep things moving forward. First, let me say hello to Larry, Jan, and Mrs. Leona are watching. A great bunch of folks. So I saw that comment there, and before I forgot, I wanted to say hi. Mrs. Leona, I can't remember if Larry said it's his mom or Jan's mom, but she also tunes in and watches these chats and the stream team. So just want to send a little shout out to Mrs. Leona. Thanks for tuning in and watching.
Absolutely.
Yeah, here in Ohio, it's just a mess. I want to go on the public record and 100% redact. I'm not sure what you say, but we all say a lot of things, and sometimes we think we're on the right track with something. And we may have that gut feeling, we may have a little bit of a gumption that something goes a certain way. And then the thing Well, it's a whole study in Proverbs actually, about where really knowledge and wisdom and how these things are imparted and what it takes. You know, I've said it. Brian maybe has even said it. Bruce, I don't even know if these words even leave your mouth. But we used to say that the cold doesn't kill bees, but wet cold bees die. We used to say that over and over and over and over again. And it was really easy to get on board and say that when we were in a climate situation here in our neck of the woods where we had winters, and things were a little bit more steady. But I am preparing for another big loss season because of the drastic cold temps that we have going up and going down, going up and going down, going up and going down, coupled with the severe winds. I just don't remember having the severity of winds like we've had in the last 2 or 3 years, the likes of which have never been seen, Brian. And that makes a big difference. And so it's kind of making me the more I learn, the more experience that we get with our beekeeping, the less I feel like I really know about anything, because
No doubt, for
it is
sure.
just constantly everything is just constantly changing. I wish it were as easy as, oh, the success of our beekeeping season hinges on whether or not we use formic or apigard or something very simple and trivial. But there are so many components, and it feels like not that there is any ever kind of an even playing field when it comes to this, but it feels like overwintering is starting to become this goalpost that constantly moves. And old man winter is the one constantly moving this thing where we can't really get a grip on what it is. I feel like we're now in this Arctic temperate climate now where it's getting super, super wet. It's getting warm. It's getting super cold. And then all these high winds, you start to really quickly understand why, folks out in the upper northern part of the Midwest, and you get why they are overwintering in cellars and buildings and places where it's breaking the wind and keeping temperatures at a certain, stability. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I do believe that bees can 100% die because they're cold, especially when it's prolonged cold and it's wind chill, just blasting the colonies. I think that is causing an awful lot of mortality, which just leads to a whole other set of uncomfortable realizations as far as, what is a solid overwintering strategy if you are overwintering outdoors. And if you're a knucklehead like me and your bees are still out on top of the ridges and getting blasted by the wind, there's just all these things, I guess, that I'm thinking about. And I'm looking back and I'm thinking, oh, well, I'm not going to be surprised if I start to see colony loss on the windward side of pallets first and all these kind of things. I'm starting to ramble now, guys, but I'm just in a I'm in a mindset now where it's like it reminds me of maybe 5-6 years ago when I had that feeling that there's nothing that we're going to do now to make up for what we didn't do then. And those windbreaks and things. It's hard to explain our lay of the land, but we are out on top of ridges, big ridges, valleys, hollers. I mean, just up and down, where we have hundreds of feet of elevation change. And so there are no flat spots. And depending on the lay of the land, the way the ridges just cut through the landscape, you might not have any place where you can get away from western wind. I've got one place on about this 102 acre parcel that would be a good place where I could set, a couple hundred colonies and have a windbreak The trouble is I didn't get them down there in time, and so now I've got things strung out here at this yard and our other out yards. So I just need to do better with that. And that's just something that's been on my pressing on me, to where I feel like if we are called to be keepers of the bees and steward of the land, we've got to do a better job of being as responsible as we can, with um, with these assets. And so that's where I'm at, Bruce. Weather's cold. I feel like the bees are getting blasted. I'm worrying a little bit too much about them at the moment. But at the end of the day, we over worry. Things always work out. And anyways, that's where we're at. Getting beat up by the wintertime and paying astronomical heating bills just to sit here in front of a computer.
I got you, man. Well, it's been cold here, but not like that. It never is cold here like it is up there. I'd like to kind of give a shout out. So many people here in the chat, names I recognize. I think I recognize a lot of the names, most of the names, but there are a few that I don't probably, but there's just no way we can recognize everyone. But we just appreciate you being in here. Many of you have been in here for the last, 4 years plus, and we got some new folks. I saw Carlos was in here from out in Utah. Carlos Dirt was in here. So I saw Eric from Spirit of Toads in here, so that was pretty cool. Haven't seen his name in here in a while, and just so many others that we recognize. There's just no way to call them all out. We appreciate y'all being here tonight, and hopefully we'll be able to get some more in here and just continue to have a good show tonight. But down here in Alabama, it's been like I say, we had snow Sunday morning. 1 or 2 inches of snow, and it got down, I think, to right around freezing, obviously, for it to snow. But when I woke up and I didn't realize it had snowed, saw the white coating of snow. It was like 33 degrees, and it melted off, before mostly by 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. And so that shuts down things here when that happens. If there's any risk of snow, it seems like they shut everything down. So we didn't have church Sunday morning. I think I mentioned that earlier. And coming up in the next few days, we do have some cold weather coming in by our standards. Well, really, it's kind of the next few days. It's kind of like highs in the 60s and 70s, and the next week we're going to have lows in the 20s and 30s. So for us, that's pretty chilly. But for you guys up there, it's nothing. Sunday's going to rain, and then the next day it's going to tank down. So the reason I'm a little nervous is because I have some queens coming in the middle of next month for hopefully to do some splits. And so, February here, it might be 75 degrees and it's like a beautiful spring day, or it might be 31 degrees and windy and rainy or snowy. Not really usually snowy, but I think 2 years ago when I made those February splits, the first time I tried it, it was like 50 something degrees and rainy. Last year, it was like a beautiful spring day. And I hope this year we have one of those beautiful spring day types. But in February, we typically get, they call them an Indian spring or Indian summer here. I'm not sure what they call it. I think it's a spring where you think it's going to be springtime. You think spring has arrived. And then, usually first part of March or so, we get a couple of weeks of pretty cold, nasty, wet weather, and it kind of reverse a lot of what you did. But if I can get those splits done during a period of warmth, make sure they have plenty of food and they're in good shape. They last year they did tremendous. The last 2 years, those splits have done really well. The key, of course, is getting some mated queens. Some people even put cells in early like that, and there usually are some drones, but that's risky because you don't know what the weather's going to do. If it's going to come in and be cold or be rainy, and they stay in the hive for 2 or 3 weeks, if they just never get mated, then you have problems. So that's kind of where we're at here. This past weekend, I was able to, I didn't really do a lot. I didn't even crack a hive open, but I did go up to the bee bay, I call it, where I keep my bee stuff up at the barn. Greg, you've been there. And I got organized. I've got more room up there now, and I just kind of did some organization. I still got a little bit to do, but it looks a lot better. That was on Friday, and then Saturday I waxed some frames. I just got out went and bought a little plug-in skillet thing and little foam roller and just rolled around close to 300 I had some old Pureco frames that I've had for a few years now, just standard wax. And 2 years ago they did really well. Last year they didn't want to draw them out very well, so I went ahead and waxed all those new ones that I had, all those old frames, but they haven't been out of the box yet, a lot of them. But hopefully that'll help with that. I've gotten to where I'm pretty much ordering new stuff. I'm ordering from Greg. I'm getting the Pura frames from Premier, but I still have some of those old frames. They work really well for honey boxes, and so that was this past week. And I've got a speed fill ordered. I got a speed fill at the expo from John at Hilco, and and I've got a part coming for that to get it hooked up to my bottling tank. And Brian, you swear by those things. Mike Berry swears by them. I have been hesitant to get them because I've got the dripless valve thing gate, but I finally just ordered it, and we'll see. If I can speed up my process and save a little time with it, I'm going to try it. But
I'm telling you what, like I know that there's been a time comparison, but I
well,
mean, there's so many different varieties of
sure, yeah.
that bottling machine, but when you go to a dedicated bottling machine like that, the benefit is when you're doing the no drip valve, you've got a hand on your bottle and you have a hand on,
Yeah,
the
I know.
lever, whatever you want to call it. With the bottling,
You just
you
set it on there.
you set it on there and that's it. And then you could be putting lids on others. So what I found and what I've done is like your bag of lids, set them right next to the machine, and just when you take it off, set one on, grab a lid, and it's just
Yeah.
you'll see
I'm
how
looking forward to trying it. We'll
yeah,
see.
oh yeah.
I had a little misunderstanding. I called John, and he was sending me a part, and I just didn't get it paid for. So he was holding on to it. I thought it would be here by today, and he texted me today. And he said, "Hey, I went ahead and sent your part, but can you send me the money?" I'm like, "Oh my gosh, there's a misunderstanding." So anyway, I will say, Greg, though, I've got the Maxent bottling tank, the 16 gallon Maxent bottling tank, and I've used that thing for years. I don't clean it out that often because I just the wax particles rise to the top, and the honey comes out as beautiful. It's been a little while since I've cleaned it, and that thing has just been a warrior for me. I think I got it like in 2018, and I'm still using it, thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds through that thing, and it still works perfectly good. So, it's just been we're going to try something new, but I am still going to use that bottling tank. I might need to, if I continue to grow, or if I just decide to, I might go ahead and just get a bigger one here one of these days, but probably not quite at that point yet. But you have to refill it with honey, every few days. It's kind of, you better just to refill it kind of all at once and then be able to last a little bit longer with it. But so down here we got some, it's going to be sunny and spring like here for the next few days. It's chilly, but not bad. And then it's going to get cold for a few days. It's just up and down, up and down. That's just the way it is right here in Alabama, South Alabama. And I haven't peeked in on the bees since before the expo. I hope they look good. I've got some things coming up where I need to have numbers of bees to make splits for different purposes. And so I've got to have bees in the boxes. And hopefully after I make the splits I'm going to make, I hope to have plenty of bees to also make a nice honey crop again. So I'm kind of a little nervous about things, but I get nervous every year. Kind of like you said, Greg, there's always concerns you have. And, but then things usually turn out, I guess they turn out the way they're supposed to, regardless of how they turn out. Right. I mean, there's a reason for everything that happens. So, but I'd like to, yeah, Bracken, we need to fly that comment.
That's a great question.
Yeah, real quick, Bracken, let me answer Bracken's question, and then we'll kind of move on to the rest of the chat. Bracken, does the auto filler attach to the Maxent tank? Yes, it does, but you have to have an attachment, and John has those. There's a little metal piece nipple thing you have to put on the tank, and then you screw his attachment on there, and it does it. But I haven't received it yet, so I'm not sure how it all works, but apparently it does, so we'll find out. How do I get that off of there? That comment. There it is. Okay, so what we're going to do now, once again, appreciate everyone being in here. I'd like to recognize some folks here. First, we have I had some super chats. Where'd they go, Brian? They disappeared. For all those who have put super chats in here,
I'll
I
go
appreciate
through
you. They didn't get starred for some reason.
Oh, you had auto star super chats turned off.
I didn't do it on purpose, but
I'm telling you what.
Turn it anyway. For all those who have put in some super chats and super stickers tonight, I appreciate it. I know Greg did, Brian did, and I know a couple of other folks have. I didn't catch your name. I certainly appreciate it. But let's move on into the next part of the chat here. The title tonight was, "Are you ready for beekeeping season?" Well, with the cold weather, it sounds like a lot of people are having. Maybe we don't have to be ready quite yet, but there is preparation work that's going on. You guys both talked about that a little bit. But I'd like to kind of delve into that a little bit more, kind of what type of preparations are you doing? But before we do that, I just thought of this. On Sunday night, Brian was in the back office. I had Cayman on the channel, and we did a I thought it was a pretty informative chat about mite treatments, and we hit up everything that we could think of: organic, synthetic, new alternative treatments. We even addressed a little bit the vaccines for viruses type things. Just talked about that a little bit. And so, if you get a chance to go back and to my previous videos on the live section of my channel, it's also in the Let's Talk Bees playlist. If you didn't get a chance to see that, I think you'd enjoy watching it. There was some really good information in there about the different treatments, and I didn't want to. I didn't want it to be super opinionated. It got a little bit that way some, but I wanted just to hit all the different options because personally, I treat. Some people don't. Some people will never put anything synthetic in their hives. Some people do. Some people try alternatives. Some people are treatment free, and we kind of talked about all the different options: the oxalic acid, OAV, extended release, Formic Pro. Just check off the bit list all the different things. Apivar 2.0, and even some of the older ones that are super kind of nasty and dangerous. We talked about those a little bit, and then we also talked about things like Apivera and some different things like that. Some different options that people are using. The Varroa, we talked about that. So
I did some research into the Apivar 2.0, and there's two big differences that I saw. If you compare Apivar and Apivar 2.0, 2.0 has a slightly lower amount of amitraz. It's like 0.33, percent lower. And then due to that, it said that there's no timing. Like when you use regular Apivar, you have that time frame where you cannot put on supers. They say that there's no honey super delay with 2.0. You can
right.
them and then slap those buggers right on. But I don't know whether I would do that. I mean,
yeah, I went and researched it, and supposedly the 2.0 has a faster knockdown stage where it's quicker. And so I think theoretically by the time the honey super's gone, it's kind of, but it's a longer treatment. It's up to 10 weeks. And so it's different. I'm actually going to try it. And then I'm going to go with oxalic acid extended while the supers are on the colony, on the hives. We'll see what happens, man. But anyway, I just wanted to kind of put a little plug in for that video. If anyone hasn't seen it, maybe you'd enjoy watching it. There's a lot of information there. I need to go in there if I can and put chapters in so you can kind of see where everything was, but I haven't done that yet. But it's a really, I thought it went well, was informative. And anyway, just check that out if you get a chance. So anyway, let's go ahead real quickly because Brian did get those started. I'm not sure how I turned that off, but Brian, appreciate the super chat there. Greg as well. Highland Honey, appreciate you so much. And then we have one from Alan McDowell, appreciate it as well. And we've already talked about those other. We talked about the bottling tank. Greg, one thing that DC had a question about while you were talking about the windbreaks. Is there a way you could block the wind? I know you got it's a pretty big bee yard up there. Would it be possible to break that wind at all, or is it in too vulnerable of a spot?
Yeah, no, it's it's hard to explain. I mean, you guys have probably seen it in some of the videos, but it's a flat spot at the top of a flat spot. It's a flat-ish spot on at the very top of the ridge. That ridge drops down probably, I don't know, 120 feet, and then another several hundred feet from the top of that to the very, very bottom part of the property there. And then there's trees, but the trees are it's the western wind and the northwestern wind. That's a problem. And so there's no flat spots to put anything. We'd literally, you'd have pallets on hillsides like this. If you tried to move them around, and then you can't get to them, or so there is one place where I could put them, and it's right next. We've got almost like a 2-acre pond, and on the one side is where Bruce and Brian, you guys have seen that. There's trees. It's a hillside climbing up with trees that would block from the western. And we've actually I do dumb things like buy an anemometer, so when it's windy I can go down and check and find the perfect spots. And then when it's windy out, I can't find the thing anywhere. So we just went down and watching grass and movement of everything else. It's a perfect spot for it. So this coming, next year, we're gonna have to make sure we get our colonies down there a little bit sooner. The problem, one of the big challenges is, the farmyard here is kind of like our main yard where we're hustling and moving a lot of splits in and out and queens and then having some production. So if you were moving to move everything early during flight season, you move all those from one spot, 300 or 400 yards away down, or 500 yards down to where the pond is. You're going to have a bunch of bees looking for home going back up the hill, and that just creates a whole. So then you wait till it gets cold enough to do that. By the time it gets cold enough to do it, life happens.
It's tough. It's tough.
It's not. So in the future, yes, maybe so, but yeah, right now it's way too big of a, right now the farmyard takes up a space of probably, they're kind of in a winter holding yard ish, and that's probably that particular piece is probably, I don't know, it's an acre and a half maybe.
Greg, I got a solution for you. I have a solution.
Okay.
So you could start, and you'd probably have to start early September, but you could move them, like 3 feet a day, and just take a picture, and then when you're done, you could have it like the march of the pallets.
3 feet or 3 miles.
Maybe going down that trail, swinging down
a pond. I did see something that actually would actually be. I'm going to consider it for next year, but I don't even know if. Should I even be saying this? I'm not really sure. Well, no, because they were available and for sale, so I'm not letting anything out as far as a product launch that wasn't already in front of people. But Coron from Apame brought us over some product that wasn't on the market yet, and they're actually very cost effective, and they're neat because it's not just like taking black tar paper or wrapping them in house wrap. It was actually these individual. How do I explain that? They were almost like bee tarps for an individual colony, for singles or for doubles, and they just kind of slip over the top. It's no insulation, nothing like that, but it was just enough to create a little bit of a windbreak to that box. Now, how much of a difference that would make, I really don't know. I think a lot of folks, when they hear us talking about this, guys, I don't know that they fully understand the severity of the conditions. People are going to say, well, cold doesn't kill bees, or that's ridiculous. You don't understand wind chill. And when you're at 2 or 3 degrees Fahrenheit with 40-mile-an-hour winds, that is rough on anything. It doesn't matter if it's in an insulated hive. It doesn't matter if it's lights out eventually. It's the law of thermodynamics, lights out at some point. And so the best thing to do is not have the bees there. Now we have other out yards that we've got other bees yards of 24s and 48s that are a little bit better protected.
Yeah, you think about it, even just walking outside in 30-degree weather, if there's no wind and if there's wind, and the difference in how intense that is.
That's Ohio right there. 9 to 12 inches of snow in a week of -5 to highs in the low 20s if lucky.
Does Tom live in Ohio?
Yeah.
Okay,
I mean, we've gone from 2 degrees Fahrenheit, like just a few minutes ago, it was just 38 degrees. And so all of a sudden everything's dripping off, the sun's going down, and then the roads are just sheets of ice again. So it's just, it's nuts. I really
can just keep it up there.
Yeah. Making sure the bees get to a western windbreak, or maybe someday I'll get smart and I'll move my bees down south where the asset can actually grow, or I'll put them somewhere and keep a northern controlled-ish climate to keep them up here. When you really think, every frame of bees is money in the spring, and so I know I'm not the only beekeeper in this part of the country who is struggling with it. I'm probably one of the few who is honest about it. But when you out in this type of topography, when you're in the Appalachian foothills, I mean, this is your landscape. there are no flat spots. There is no easiness anywhere. So you have to use the contour of the land to your best ability, and we're going to have to find some better ways to do that.
I've told what Greg said about the wind up here. I've told Tara, oh gosh, probably
Yeah,
a dozen
DC.
times about the wind. Like I've got a weather station here, and then we've got one down in the kitchen, and just the steady winds. I mean, it's like right now I'm looking and 12-mile-an-hour wind, and that's just steady wind, and it's like, and that's not the gust.
Right.
So it's like when you have, and now it's 13. So when you have these 12, 13-mile-an-hour winds that are just nonstop, like I was looking out when it was still light outside, and it caught my eye when I was looking out the window because we've got the tree and there's a couple bird feeders. Our bird feeders were like this in the tree.
Oh man.
I'm just like, I'm looking out there and I'm like, well, the wind kicked up because the bird feeders were sideways.
Man.
It's ridiculous.
Well, these things have a way of scaling your abilities in the spring, and so if anything, I keep looking at it as the good Lord's telling me, no more growth. Stop trying to grow the bees. So if we've got winter die-offs because of wind and everything else, we'll have plenty of bees to sell nukes and to raise some queens and to do things like that. And maybe that's the direction we're being led and pushed one way or the other to go into is to cut back on the number of colonies that we've got, what we're trying to do with those, the reason, the goal, and maybe we trim that back and just supply nukes and some queens and focus on other things, other higher dollar things.
You mentioned that, Greg. That's interesting. Lawrence Edwards at the the Black Mountain Honey, he was at the Bee Conference at the Bee Expo, and he gave a talk on basically kind of what you're talking about. Let's instead of trying to always grow and expand, just being able to really manage the bees that you already have a little better, and that can actually increase yield, I imagine, in both bees and in honey.
Yeah.
If you just take care of them and really, instead of trying to always be, hey, I got to have more hives, I got to have more colonies. And I think you're kind of already to that point, but a lot of people just think, oh, man, if I want to make more honey, I got to have more colonies. Well, if you lose 40% of them every year, then you got to rebuild up. And you come out of, the ones that you lose, you have to completely rebuild and start from scratch. Whereas if you could keep, maybe instead of losing 40%, maybe lose 10% or less and keep those colonies strong, then you'll actually make more honey with fewer colonies than you would just trying to always expand. And that was a concept. I probably already knew that deep down, but I haven't really thought of it that way before. Just with the colonies you have, just be more efficient, have healthier, stronger bees that can go into spring and peak and be able to really produce what you want them to produce, as opposed to always just scraping and scrapping and trying to get more colonies. And so I thought that was really cool. Lawrence, Brian and I had a nice talk with him, a nice chat with him, and went to his course and his talk there. And he's he's phenomenal. If you haven't checked out his channel at Black Mountain Honey on YouTube, he's over in the UK. And principles are the same. There are some things that are different about over there and here. I think the equipment might be a little bit different, and some things are a little bit different, but the fundamentals are the same, I think. And he's got some pretty solid fundamentals going on over there. He's learned things the hard way, but he's doing well. So I wanted to give a shout out to Lawrence. I learned a lot in his class. So
in a roundabout way, his whole philosophy, before I heard him talk about it, I think I was somewhat landing on what he does, because I said, I'm only going to go to a certain point and then I'm going to demorate the others. That way I maintain just those monster colonies and manage just those. Because, when spring comes up here, could I split all of my colonies out? Yeah, but, I'd rather just have those colonies that are well maintained, well managed. I'm not running around chasing my tail, going colony to colony to colony to colony. I think my plan I got for this year is finally like right where I want it.
Yeah. Well, let's Man, good stuff already. I'd like to once again recognize everyone in here. We've got 186 folks on the chat right now. That's a little more than what we've been getting. I think maybe because of we're into the new year and people are getting excited about it. And, for beekeeping channels, I think that the fall is a little bit slow typically just because people are kind of, I don't know if they're burnt out or focused on other things. There's a lot of things going on in the fall coming up in the winter, but now people are kind of locked in again, I think, with the expo happening and people getting equipment, getting bees, and really focusing on spring and hoping spring will get here soon. I think that's why more people probably are focused in on the beekeeping stuff and trying to learn and share, the community with everybody else. And so glad so many folks are on here and hopefully we can continue to grow a little bit. But I'd like to go ahead and maybe shift a little bit into the topic for tonight. Are you ready for beekeeping season? And maybe Greg, we could start with you. I know you have the beekeeping store and you're dealing with people all the time they're looking forward to the upcoming spring, both seasoned beekeepers, newish beekeepers, and then people just looking to get into it brand new. What are some things that you're doing to get ready for spring and that you'd recommend other people do to get ready for spring and for beekeeping season that's coming up?
Yeah. It's a great topic, and I think there's so many different ways you can go about that. And understanding, if it's a brand new person, this is their first year, if this is someone whose their goals are to grow their apiary from a hobbyist into a sideliner, or maybe a sideliner to go into maybe more of a professional in a relationship with their bees. All of those things matter. But for us, as far as us being prepared, I feel like um, we're past the point of feeling like we're unprepared for spring, and we have for a long time. We've been busy building and dipping equipment, and have frames and lids, and like we've got enough equipment for the number of colonies that we are comfortable running. So like there's not really an extra need for equipment right now. And because everything's in Durahive wax dip, it's not like I've got to pull boxes out of service and paint them, or pull boxes out to fix them or rework them. They literally get, when we're done with them in the year, like as we're getting things consolidated and right sized for winter, those extra boxes and or frames are getting just peeled off and stacked and moved around. So there's nothing to really do there. Um, I'm doing things mentally, like lining out in my head how much feed I'll need, how much pollen patties, which treatments am I going to be using this year? What is my overall IPM strategy going to be? Do I have all of those things in place and get those ahead of time? The last thing in the world you want to do is to be needing something, and then there be a week or 2 or 3 or 4 week lead time to get it. That can really set you back. So for me, it's um, again, estimating how much feed that I'll need for us, nutrition, get all those things squared away. As far as queens go, I mean, that's not something that we have to worry about because we make them here. So my mind shifts more towards getting ready as far as helping folks meet their goals. Which products are going to be best for certain markets, getting the orders in, like a truckload order or half a truckload or a skid or 2, whatever that it might be. Getting those things in place is where most of our mental faculty is right now. But I think for folks who are getting going and they're trying to figure all that out, and they're not quite in that place where they're comfortable with where they're at, or they don't know kind of where they're going, or they're just trying to build this program together, I would encourage you to reach out and try to spend some time with a beekeeper who has a decent grip on what to expect in the spring, what kind of resources that you can expect. How much feed will a colony need? How many pollen patties, boxes, equipment, hives? Do you have everything that you need? Now is the time to get all of those materials and get them to your site and have them ready. Because if you wait until you get spring fever, like the grass starts to turn green, man, if you wait until that first smell of fresh cut grass, you're done. You've already missed it. But if you can get everything in place and ready before or as those early pollens are coming in, you're going to have time to make sure you're getting the equipment on top of the bees, and you're not going to set them back because they may be deficient nutritionally. They may be deficient in not having enough room to grow. So I think that is the thing to think about. Mr. Dennis Sherrill, good to see you there. He can say he's glad he's got those boxes from us. Yeah, that was great meeting Dennis and a couple of his buddies down there on the way to the Bruce's place to deliver some wax equipment. So I would encourage folks, no matter where you're at, no matter, it's going to be hard. A lot of folks are going to be waiting until we get into the end of February and early March to start really pulling the trigger on package orders and nukes and getting their bees lined up. And I would just caution you, don't wait too long, because if this winter continues like it is, we could be looking at another heavy loss, at least in the Midwest or East Midwest. That could put a dent on bee availability. So if you're thinking that you want to grow, go ahead and start reaching out to whoever your provider is, and get those bees lined up, get the equipment and your frames, your boxes, your tops, your feeders, your feed, everything lined up now. Put that plan in place, because the last thing in the world you want to be doing is scrambling to make all those moves. That's bad enough that it feels like you're always behind with the bees on reading them and making those moves. It's even worse when you're reading them, you feel like you're 10 days late, and then you're going to be 14 days to get equipment there. That can really put you and the bees in a bad position. So get ahead of it, get that equipment secured, and just don't wait around. We'll be sold out quickly of that first round of packages. The second and third will be right behind there. Nukes are going to be the same way. And equipment, large orders, if you're looking for skids of material, you really got to get a hold of us like immediately, so we can actually get you on the production schedule. The season's going to move quick. It's going to be Valentine's Day, guys, before we know it. And historically, this part of Ohio, this is how goofy we are. Out of the last maybe 10 years, I would say 6 of those 10 years, we've got maples blooming on Valentine's Day, a couple days early or up to a week after that. That's how weird of a zone that we're in. So it's going to be, we're only a month away from that. That's wild, guys. We're almost there.
We have maple is blooming here. It has
right
been
now.
I think. Yeah, it's been blooming.
Oh.
So we're in it. We're in it.
Okay, guys, we're in the envy and jealousy mode. Hate to admit that, but this is the time of year where Bruce is going to just start rubbing
He'll be sending pictures.
Rubbing it in.
Well, I sent you guys to be fair, I sent you guys a picture of snow on the ground Sunday morning. So, that was then Brian sends me a picture. It's like 2 degrees or whatever it is up there. It's super cold. So he's always got a one up me or one down me. I'm not sure how you say it when the temperature's real cold, but anyway, yeah, that's yeah. I would say, I don't know, for those who have ever had a chance, I'm sure many of you, if not most of you, are familiar with Ian Stepler at Canadian Beekeepers blog, but he put out a video kind of that echoes what Greg said about the 14 days or so forth. You gotta get it ready to go. It's called the 10-day rule. He put that video out a few years ago, and if you get a chance to look up Ian Stepler 10-day rule or Canadian Beekeepers 10-day rule or something, it's a short video. It's only 5 or 6 minutes long, I think. It's not very long, but it really talks about the principles of you got to get it done within a certain amount of time or you're going to be behind the 8 ball, and how if you don't get on things when you need to get on them, you can actually lose bees because of that. So it's a really interesting, it's one of my favorite videos that he's done, or one of my favorite beekeeping videos, period, because the principles that he teaches in that short little video are valuable. Now, I don't live up to that. Typically, I usually get behind and I get in trouble, but I understand the principles behind it. 10,000 pounds of honey 2026. I hope I get that many, Pat. I got around that a little more than that last year, and I need about that many again this year, hopefully. I've been selling a lot. I still have some to go, but I think I've got about close to 70 buckets left out of 185. So we've plowed through a lot of it. That old Maxim bottling tank has been busy for the last.
Sounds like you need a max 42 gallon unit like we have here.
Yeah, that might be in the future. I've spent a lot of money this year on other things, but it might be in my future. The problem is the location where I bottle it up doesn't have a lot of space and room. And, I need to figure out how to, I do everything in 5-gallon buckets now. And how I have it set up on the counter, to lift it up over the edge of that 42 might be a bit much. I don't know. I'd have to, it may be in the works. Who knows? That may be happening. Maybe at least a 25-gallon or something, a little bigger. But I keep up. The problem I have is just dumping those buckets in, especially now they're getting crystallized, and so I'm having to decrystallize the bucket enough to dump them in the tank to finish decrystallizing them, and it becomes a little bit of a challenge. But I've done it for years, and it works out fine. And I appreciate all the customers I have, and I hope I can keep them
I
supplied. And
like
it's
that
not that big of
idea
a deal.
that I've seen some of the folks here in our community. I like that idea of taking a motor scooter or an ATV jack, and maybe fabricating a platform for that and having that thing you'd be able to go up and down, so you could lower it to where you're just waist height to put a
Oh
bucket
yeah,
in, and then
make a lift
then
out of
bring
it.
it up. Yeah, and Maxit makes some nice stands. There's bunches of ways to put your stuff out there, but um,
Yeah,
ideally, what you would have is you'd have a pump system, Bruce, that you'd be
absolutely.
pumping it to, and not be lifting those things. But
Yeah, I'm just
we make
not
do.
quite there yet.
You and I are the type where we just make do until we can't do the making anymore, and then we have to get into the piece of equipment. So
Well, I'm getting close to the point to where, if I had a dedicated facility for extracting, bottling, et cetera, it could all be in the same place. It would be good. But right now, we pull from the hives. We actually extract at Rusty's place. Then I put them on a truck, move them to the place where the honey is stored in the buckets up at the farm. Then I put them in my pickup truck, about 8 or 10 at a time, or 12, and bring them to my house. And we have a room that we use to bottle the honey. So it's just, if you're using it in drums and stuff, that's a lot more convenient if you have everything in the same spot or close
right,
to each other. But I just don't. With me, I'm driving those buckets about, it's probably 25 miles, give or take. I think 25 miles from Rusty's place to the place I store the buckets, and then another 11 miles from the farm to my house. And so I've got to continue using the
good
5-gallon
workout, I
buckets for
guess.
now. Yeah, it's really a good workout when you're unloading 170 5-gallon buckets out of the. Of course, I have two big, strong son-in-laws that help me, and my brother helped me a little bit too this past summer. So that always helps when they've all got pickup trucks and they can all help. But yeah, it's always, you know what, it's extremely hard work. But those are the days I look forward to. A lot of people think I'm crazy. A lot of people think it's crazy but I enjoy the harvesting. To me, is the culmination of the entire year, because first of all, you get the beautiful harvest, you get the product, the honey that the bees have worked so hard for, that you've worked so hard to help them produce. And then, we've had the blessing of a great community, a great fellowship opportunity with other beekeepers from all over the country, local folks, family, friends of family, and then people have come from as far away as Utah and Tennessee, and just different places, parts of the state down here. And so I've just been blessed. To me, I just love that fellowship, and everyone works hard, but I don't think anyone ever leaves that situation and wishes they hadn't come, because it's just such a incredible experience. Oh yeah, we had Gigi came over from Mississippi last year. I think she's in Mississippi. So, Lisa keeps coming back. I tell her she's kind of crazy to do that, but I think she really enjoys it. Otherwise, she wouldn't come back. But she, if she can possibly make it whenever I harvest, she's always there. She's a loyal friend, and I appreciate all she does for this area as well. She is right here close, and she's a good friend, and she's doing a lot of good things right here in this area for the beekeeping community as well. Lisa is heavily involved in Hives for Heroes. She's got a couple of mentees right now, I believe, and she kind of helped me with one of my mentees that I haven't done a very good job with. And she's a go getter. She's made all kinds of products. And Lisa, you can if you got a website where people can order it, your stuff, just throw the link to your website in here if you got one. How you can ship them something. She has all kinds of creams and honeys and all just kinds of products that she has created. Her and Deidre, her sidekick, they've done a lot of good things. So shout out to Lisa, Grammy midwife, a great lady. But anyway, so Brian, coming up, I know I think you're in a large part just almost ready for next year, aren't you? You bought some things at the expo and filled my truck up, and then filled your SUV up to take it to the house. So talk a little bit about what you're doing to prepare for the spring now, and what you've done. If there's anything left to do, what you plan to do.
I tell you, so the first thing that I've done is, and this is typically what I suggest for anybody, kind of think ahead on the number of colonies that you see yourself managing this next season. And once you have that number, and this is what I've done, that's why I say I'm going to run 15 production, and then I'm going to have my 2 double nukes off to the side, and I have all the equipment for those. but I know I'm going to have 15 production. So with 15 production, you have to have a certain number of hive bodies. It's just a given. So that's typically how I prep, and that's why I bought the frames that I got. When I go down to Greg's, I'm going to get boxes. That'll be the last thing that I need is when I get boxes down from Greg. But I think I'm pretty much almost set. Um, I don't think I'll need anything really beyond that. Uh, but like Greg had said, do it now because, and I saw Anil say also, being prepared for the season, it just makes things 1,000 times easier because if you're in the midst of, when weather breaks and everything starts to happen very fast, you do not want to have to make phone calls and run to stores and pick things up. It just makes the entire process 10 times more frustrating, you know, and you just don't want to do that. I've learned being prepared is just so huge. So I started, I'd say probably 2 or 3. Look at Tom saying, I sound like a beekeeper saying production hives. Uh, I started probably 2 or 3 years ago, like around this time of the year. I always do it. It always seems like I'm always doing it when it's cold out. I go over to the honey room with a notepad and I look at everything that I have and I take an inventory. And then I'll know right there from that sheet, okay, well, I need to get this, I need to get that, But I've gone through in the last like 2 years or so. I think I've switched all of my lids. I've got all migratory lids. I've got buckets. So everything as far as lids, bottom boards, I've switched over. Like I used to have screen bottoms. Now I have all solid bottoms. So I've got enough there. I think it's just these last few boxes that I'm going to end up getting from Greg. And my plan will be set. I think I'll have enough equipment that I'll have 15 production colonies, and I'm planning on having 45 supers for those. So 3 supers on each one. And then I'll be set. If they're filling it up, say we get into a real heavy flow and 2 of the supers are filled, I can always pull 1 or 2 of them, extract, and just throw wet supers back on them. But right now is typically like when I'm looking at stock and everything like that is just so key. And like prepping for bees also, if you do see that colonies are slacking and you think that they're going to die off, get them ordered now because, I mean, I've seen people at the last minute and then you're having to pretty much scrape from the bottom of the barrel just to find bees, and that's not a good situation to be in. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's so key, and we've had some great comments. I mentioned a second ago. If you have a lot of we got a lot of comments. I've got a few of them started, and then if you have any questions, if you put them in all caps, we'll try to address those. We may not get to all, but we'll try. As for me, I've got some opportunities coming up this year, and some of them I probably will share on the channel. If I've got to make sure I have permission to do that first. Some really kind of cool opportunities to go in a little different direction. I'm still obviously going to do a lot of the same things with the honey production, but I do have a one, I guess you could call it a contract, where I keep hives for a friend here in town that has paid me for years to keep hives there. It's at Honey Hill Farm. And we've got a deal worked out there. Now, people often will ask me, or not often, but sometimes people ask me, how much do you charge? What do you do? How do you work that out? And I'm extremely hesitant to tell exactly what I do because if you live here, it's way different than anywhere else. And the people you're going to be working with, you just got to kind of figure out what you need to make on something like that for it to be worth your time. And I think each individual contract or situation will be a little bit different. And I have another one of those opportunities coming up here, and Greg and I are working on that with a local person here that's pretty exciting as well. And that could be pretty helpful to my operation too. And so, trying to reach out different ways, different avenues of revenue to maybe help move things forward a little bit with the operation. But basics are still going to be the same as far as I've had them. I put 2 rounds of Hive Alive fondant on the colonies. They came into the winter. We had a really good fall flow here, and they were heavy. They still are for the most part, but some of them are a little bit light. But they have fondant on them. I need to probably do one more round of fondant. My plans are to go ahead. A lot of people are just trying to get equipment ready, whereas I'm actually this weekend. It looks like Friday and Saturday are going to be good enough, warm enough, probably in the 60s to be able to get into them. And I'm going to go ahead and if I get my apiary in, I'm going to go ahead and try and install that so I have enough time between now and the honey flow to get it out. I mean, it's 7 to 10 weeks, I think, is the treatment. So that should be perfect if I can do that. I'm going to be juggling the splits a little bit with that. And then, like I said earlier, I do plan then to utilize some extended release OAV, not Varoxan this time. I'm going to use some of the Swedish towels. Is that what you call them? Swedish towels. Actually, I'm getting some from, I've got a source that I can't tell you where they're coming from, but some of this already, they're not going to be impregnated with the glycerin and OA, but I'm getting the towels from someone, and then I'm going to do that myself and give that a try. I've never done that before, and my goal is to leave that on throughout the honey season because it's legal to do that, and that way, hopefully, keep the mites down. I want to get the mites under control now, and then come out of the honey flow, honey season, instead of being infested with mites, come out with clean bees to be able to go ahead and start working towards next year. But most of my preparation, it's not all done. I'm waiting. Greg's going to be bringing some stuff down to me here in the next 3 or 4 weeks. But I don't have a ton of preparation work to do. I think I have most of the equipment I need. Now it's a matter of just, and then with what Greg's bringing down, that'll be pretty much everything I need, I believe. And I can order little things here or there. But it's just a matter of, just getting mentally and physically ready and then putting a plan of action. I think what I'm trying to do now is work out in my head my actual plan of action as to how I want to do things, when I want to do it, and logistically how to do things. And so I'm a little bit ahead of you guys in the north as far as that goes. We're looking at now we're getting in these hives, we're getting these colonies and checking them out. So that's what's going on. But that's kind of where I'm at with my operation now. So you can see right now the difference in all three of us, the different things we're doing. And Brian, I will say that talk, Brian, if you could, a little bit to the reason why you purchased you got some frames that are a little bit expensive, but why did you do that?
So I've got like a multi-year plan, and I started several years back, and I think any single person, every single person in this chat has had frames bust. They've had equipment break. It's just equipment failure, basically. It happens in beekeeping. We're very rough on equipment. You figure we're using hive tools, we're doing everything like that. Equipment gets beat up. My boxes, I switched over to all of the wax dipped. That way, I never have to worry about boxes. Since doing that, and my whole thought in my head about upgrading my equipment was, if I can shave time off of, any of the tasks throughout the year in beekeeping, that's just extra time to do other. And so I've got, I would think probably 95% of my boxes they're all wax dipped. And then I've got 2 Apame setups, and I've got that 3D printed. And then I started looking at the frames, and I'm like, every single year I've got frames that bust, and typically it's in my brood chambers, just because those are the ones that sit for months and they are never touched. That last inspection in the fall, it could go sometimes until ending of March. So there's, 4 or 5 months where I might not break any of those frames apart. And then when you get into those colonies where they're real heavy propolis producers, it is a bugger to get those things apart. Every single year I bust a few. Well, I got sick of that. So my thought process was, why not try and boost the longevity of my frames? So I saw those infinity frames. Now, it is an investment because they are 5 something a frame, but I figure I want in my setup, and if everybody in here has seen it, I run a deep and a medium that are always on. They're always out in the elements. It's kind of like a hybrid singles setup that I do. So I want all of my frames that are going to be out in the elements the entire year. I want all wax dipped boxes. That way I don't have to paint them. I don't have to worry about rot. I don't want anything like that. And then I want frames in those boxes that I will never have to worry about breaking.
So
And
smart. Yeah.
It just, by doing that, and it's going to be a 2-year process for my frames. I can't, I could, I've got the honey money that's sitting over there. But I like to have a buffer as far as what cash I have on hand, just for treatments, things like that. Stuff happens in beekeeping. But I figure in a 2-year plan where I upgrade all of my frames, I then have a yard where there's going to be 15 production colonies sitting there with boxes that, I'm 53 and I've bought them in the last, two or so years. So I probably will not have to mess with any of them boxes till I'm in my 70s. By that point, I'm going to forget that I even have boxes. So I won't know that I have to fix anything. For the frames, I'll have frames that I'm never going to have to assemble again. If I want to smack let's say there's a yellow legged hornet that's flying in the air and I have a frame in hand, I can smack that bugger. And if the frame flies out of my hand, I don't have to worry about the frame breaking. I want solid equipment that I basically eliminate all of those maintenance type tasks. Now, the supers that I'm going to run, I have all premier frames and foundation ordered, and those jokers are solid as well. So, but you figure for those, and I think they've got to be some of the thickest frames that are on the market, the premiers.
Yeah, they are.
With my supers, I'm only going to use those 2 times a year. I'll put them out in the spring and they'll catch that flow, and then they're going to be off and they'll be stored for a little while, and then they'll go back out in the fall, for a couple weeks, and then they're back in and stored. So those frames aren't quite getting beat up as much as the others. That's my whole thought in why I wanted to upgrade frames and just go to something like that. People have said, man, that's some cash. But think of in 20 years how many frames I might have break.
Yeah. You buy cheap, you buy twice, no matter what it is. I mean, we've talked about quality, made in the USA, bottling tanks and extractors and things of that nature. When you spend the money and invest in, it's hard. And I don't want people to mishear what we're saying. Not a single one of us is sitting on a pile of extra cash and we're just looking for ways to buy expensive stuff. None of us are doing that. You get to a certain point in your journey where you've had to replace junk, or you bought something that was a little bit misleading on what it actually was, and you get it and it didn't cut the mustard, or you had issues with it. And at that point, then you say, I'm not going to buy that same thing again. I'm going to spend more money and I'm going to get the piece of equipment that will be the last time that I buy it. So when you buy cheap, you buy twice. When you get into like what we just talked about tonight, even the Vivor honey fillers. I mean, they're all the same, no matter what brand or color is on them. They're all the same, and you can pick up a Vivor for, I don't know, $300. You can get it with someone's color and markings on it for another maybe $100 and $200. At the end of the day, those are all made in China, and if they break, it's $300 or $400. I wish there was an American-made version of that, but there's a certain point where there's a compromise. You have to balance out the need that you have, the budget you have to do it, and will that job or tool get you by? I can't tell you how many times I've gone to Harbor Freight to buy the same tool 4 or 5 times, and eventually you stop doing that and you buy a quality piece of equipment, and it's the last time. So whether it's the premier wooden frame, like if you decide that frame gets so junky and nasty you can pop the foundation out, pop a new one in, and keep going if you just prefer wood. And what I like with Michael's one-piece frames is those rascals. I mean, if you want to dip them in hot water and scrape them right back down to the plastic and just recoat it later on, you can. And like, if you take that, Brian, if you put your right hand back on the side of that sidebar, yep, and then with your left hand, you try to twist that. You're not twisting that like you would on. We'll leave the names out. Other one-piece plastic frames.
Yeah,
That makes a big difference. And what I like about Michael's frames is they don't have that squeaky nails on the chalkboard sound with your hive tool. They're very heavy. They are definitely heavy. But it's, eventually when you get to the point to where you want to buy something once and then that's it. There are some products out there for it. And then, Michael's company, 21st Bee, I'm not even sure if he's on here tonight, but it really doesn't matter.
I don't think he is.
So, they make a lot of great products, and they're an American-made company. And so there's a lot to be said about that, and supporting the industries that are supporting actually made in the USA, where that your dollars are staying here on American soil, and they're not going out to communistic third world freedom-hating countries. That's a big deal.
Yeah. Speaking to both of those products, or all three of the products you guys have mentioned, actually, I've decided, if you look at my bee yard, even still now, you can tell there are homemade boxes there. There are boxes, traditional, just going to say from the big companies, just kind of the what's the word, budget grade boxes that have lasted me for years. There are painted boxes that I waxed it with a friend of mine that are still in pretty good shape. I've got a combination of everything. I got boxes on bottom boards. I got boxes on pallets. I got 3 or 4 different types of lids. Everything from what's the concrete board stuff, the HDO, as well as plywood and just Advantech, and
don't say that word.
I've got everything. I've got everything. Well, not Advantech, not Advant. Well, I do have some that I've had for years. Anyway, and I've got just standard pine. I've got everything. I've got wax tip lids. Everything. Anyway, so, but what I decided was a few years ago, I had to scrap and scrape like so many of us in the chat. So many of you guys that are in here, maybe just getting started. I kind of had to do that at the beginning. My goal from the beginning was to, I went into debt. Well, I mean to myself, but I reached into my pocket and spent money on the first, 4 colonies, 6 colonies I got. And then after that point in time, I have spent some money here or there, but I tried to always build my business from the point to where I could, from a point to where I could stay in the black and pay for things as I went. And over time, the bees have been good to me. And now I'm to the point where the bees they make me a little money. People say, if you want to, what are some of the things they say about if you want to make $1 million, spend 2 or spend 2 million or something like that. Anyway, but that has not been the case with me. I mean, I have spent some money, but I've also made some money, and that's not a living for me yet, but it's been enough to be able to, now I can afford some of the better, nicer things as far as the Maxents, the really nice equipment that I've had, the more expensive and nice extracting line that I have, both extractors and capper. And then, of course, the wooden boxes. Now, my goal from here on out is to get the boxes from Greg, the EnduraHive boxes, the Propola boxes. And everyone's not going to get those. I understand that, but those are the ones I've chosen to get. And I think they'll last for many years. And this year, I'm actually getting the EnduraHive boxes with the copper dip before they dip them in wax. And I think they're super good quality. They're really nice, but not saying you have to do that. You don't, but I've just believed that it'll be good, and I can't afford it. As far as the frames, I've used all different kinds of frames, and but I like the Pura frames, and that's kind of what Greg sells, and I try to be loyal to Greg here with that. And then Brian, of course, I mentioned the Infinity frames. I got a box of those last year, and somebody mentioned, I can't remember who it was in the chat, mentioned that they have to draw them out when you put them in there, and that's true. But I will tell you that whatever they do to spray those things with wax, whatever they put on there. Now, I talked to Michael. He said they order the wax actually out of Europe, and they have a way they spray it on there. And those bees, I've never seen bees draw a frame out as fast as they drew those frames I put in there last year on that stuff.
You won't be able to see it because of the webcam, but the wax, you're not going to be able to see it. Michael said, and the whole process of how he does it, he said it's all proprietary. He's not going like
It is different for
their
sure. It doesn't feel like most of the ones
wax
that you get.
spraying
Yeah.
system. But he said what it does is it atomizes the wax, like it's like fine little droplets. So that way the bees, he said it's easier for them to pick it up and utilize it. And I did see that, like on those frames, I didn't have a single area on any of the frames. Like I put
Yeah.
in 20 last year. I didn't have a single area where there was any wonky comb. Like and I examined everything. Everything was on video when I checked them. They were just spot on. Now, the one thing that they will do, and after a couple times of using my old pinky, but where you have the pass through holes, they're going to want to draw that out and just keep poking it out, and then they'll keep it open. And those things there are great because you figure up here, cold temps like what we have now, the bees are not going to have to go around to get through. They've got those holes in the middle. So I'm really curious, like switching over to those frames, then having those extra pass throughs and things like that, how the colonies will fare as far as the winter.
Yeah. Yeah, Steve says they're twice the weight. They're pretty heavy, but they're heavy duty, man. I think Michael even said he could sometimes use them as a hammer to beat a nail down or something, and they are very durable.
I
But
mean,
anyway, I think I think we've done a pretty good job tonight talking about things we're doing to prepare and some of the products we use. Once again, I want everyone to realize that we are not here to tell you you have to do this or that, or that it's just kind of what we're doing. I would never recommend something that I haven't tried or that I'm not doing myself. And that's just kind of been my philosophy as I've developed over the last, I guess we're coming up on 13 years now. This is on 2013 is when I started keeping bees. So
wow.
I started off just as really trying to be as cheap and expensive as I possibly could because I kind of out of necessity in my situation. I didn't want to spend a ton of money on the bees, but now I'm actually to a point after years of trying to be frugal where I can go ahead and get some of the nicer stuff. But you know, you hear the term buy once, cry once, and a lot of people understand that principle. Sometimes if you'll spend the money up front to, like Greg mentioned, to have a product that will last you for years as opposed to having to buy new products. So, you know, as far as boxes go, if you have to buy new boxes every 3 or 4 years, you know, you buy a box that you have to buy replaced in 3 years for $20, or you could spend, you know, more than that, a little bit more than that, and have one for 20 or 25 years. You know, that's kind of the philosophy that I have now. And so I've kind of gotten to the point where I'm willing to spend a little bit more money on stuff. But the bees have been good to me. If I had a year where the bees just didn't produce, I might back off, you know, a little bit and maybe not buy as much stuff. But I'm trying to kind of replace my old cheap stuff where the hives have extra entrances in them from rot. I'm trying to get some of those boxes replaced with nicer stuff now.
Ventilated
And
boxes.
so they'll be, of course, the bees love it. They don't mind. They don't care. It's kind of, I think they like it a lot, but it makes it easier if you have uniform, tough boxes that'll last a while. As anyone knows, it makes it easier to kind of manage your bees if they're more uniform and you don't have so many holes in them and stuff like that where you don't want the holes. But anyway, but I've kept a lot of bees for a long time and in a lot of those boxes, and they've worked out good for me. The bees have been good to me. So what I'd like to do now is go through. We've started almost 30 comments here, and some of them are questions, some of them are just comments, but we'll kind of whip through them pretty quickly now. And so we can just kind of address some of these issues if we want to. Some of them we'll just read because they're just comments. But before we move on, I would just like to say we certainly do, as we mentioned before, appreciate everyone for being on here tonight. We hit 200 now; it's kind of going down a little bit. We do appreciate it. So anyway, so once again, we'll whip through. We got a couple super chats. So Brian, thanks again for the super chat, the $20 super chat. He says, sharing means caring. Snow in the South, Stream Team 2026. Yeah, we did have a little snow in the South, but it was short lived. About 4 or 5 hours, it was gone. Greg, thanks so much again for yours. Ready for a beach vacation, man? I believe with you guys up there, it'd be nice to get somewhere nice and toasty, warm, and sit on a beach for a while.
I'll settle for Dothan in about 4 weeks. We'll be down.
I just hope it's not 50 degrees and cold. I hope it's not raining and cold when you come. I hope it's not like that. That would be, but anyway. Highland Honey, Hot Tea Fund. Appreciate it, Highland. Thanks so much for that super chat there. Appreciate it so much. We have Alan, thanks for the $5 super chat there. Appreciate it so much. Let's see, we got let's see,
Oh, is that Ken
what's buzzing?
Lebowski?
Oh, Ken Lebowski. Yeah, he is on here. Kim Lebowitz from over in Andalusia,
Oh,
not
yeah,
too far from me
Lebowski's
down.
the movie.
He's about
Yeah.
150, oh, not that far. He's about 75 miles west of me, I think, over in Andalusia. Ken is a great guy. Ken's had a
Yeah.
lot of challenges this year, but he just keeps on plugging. He's a veteran. Highs for Heroes. I think he's the Alabama rep for Highs for Heroes. Just a great guy. And if you see him on your social media, just reach out to him, check in on him, and say, "Hey, I know he'd love to hear from you."
Ken, before we pass through that comment, I just want Ken to know how much we appreciate him, and the challenges that he's been through this year. I know a lot of folks they're still praying for you, buddy, still thinking about you. And I know it's hard in this season to think about this, but you are really going to be such an incredible and tremendous lighthouse to so many folks. You'd never wish the challenges that he's had this year in this past year and a half, 2 years. But I think we can all say we've shared tough times, and that what the enemy meant for evil, the Lord turned around for good. And Ken, I'm really, when the time is right for you, I would love to sit down with you, and be able to capture your testimony for the public, because that is a powerful thing to be able to do, is to share those times where the same God on the mountain is the same God in the valley, and how he's brought you through and where you're at. I would love to be able to share that testimony when the time is right for you. But I wanted to that was just on my heart real quick. I wanted to throw that out there. Just keep doing what you're doing, one foot in front of the other, brother. And we're thinking about you and we're praying for you.
Yeah, he's had a couple of tragedies this year that have been just, they would have, a lot of people would have crumbled, but he's just keeps on plugging along, keeps on moving along strong. Brett Reynolds, thanks so much for the super chat. Appreciate it, man. Let's see here. Greg, will you ship to Canada? Then Kilby wonders about that.
I don't think Trump Daddy will let us do anything in Canada these days, but
it's gonna have to go through Greenland.
We'll have to go through. I would love
goodness,
to.
yeah.
We have shipped stuff in the past for Canada, so if you want to shoot us a message, we'll try. We'll see what that would look like. For years, we've always shipped stuff in and out of there. It's not like it's an impossible territory, but certainly get a hold of us and we can see what that would look like.
All right.
I'm proud to say we do have an EnduraHive waxed dip box in the island of Newfoundland. That's in Canada, awesome. For all you geographically challenged Americans like myself. It's up there. Pretty cool.
Yeah, it's not too far from Greenland, is it?
It's about that far on a map.
Exactly.
All right. So we were talking earlier about the weather, and Glade made a good point here. He says it's been too warm here, which is odd where he's at. He's up in the eastern plains of Utah where it just gets bitter cold typically. Kind of like what you guys have been experiencing the last couple of years. And it stays that way for a while. But he says, it's been too warm here. Bees are burning through their store too quickly. I'm going to have to feed more this year. And so that is a danger of weather that is too warm is, for those who may not understand, sometimes cold weather, as long as it's not too cold for too long, can actually be a benefit to the bees because they don't burn near as much energy. And they're a little bit, it's almost a little bit easier. I think I've never experienced that because it's always warm down here, hit or miss. But I think for you guys up north, if the weather's not too bad, it's actually almost a blessing for it to be a little bit chilly or cold for a while. But yeah, pay attention. If it gets warm, pay attention to the weight. You can always lift up the back of the hive and see how much they weigh and feed accordingly. And, we can briefly address this as well. I know you guys use the Hive Alive fondant. If you're trying to feed liquid feed, it doesn't work well in the wintertime, obviously, for very obvious reasons. But the fondant is really good in cold weather. It doesn't ever melt on them or drip on them, or it's not like liquid that would drip on them and freeze them to death. But they can work at it as they can, and they can get up there and work at it slowly, and it kind of helps maintain the hives through winter. You guys agree with that? Anything else to add to that, or no? All right.
It's on point. I just had a great conversation with a beekeeper who, he's running, several hundred colonies, and they're switching over to the Hive Alive fondant because for them to go through the time and aggravation and components of trying to mix up a consistent, uniform fondant that either A, is not too hard, or B, doesn't drip all over the bees and just gum them up. They were looking for a way to reduce dysentery and provide those nutritional needs and feed. I mean, a lot of folks, even large beekeepers, are now seeing the benefit of it because of all the things that are in there. They're not wasting money on cheap knockoff products that it's just the sugar. They're looking for the actual the nutrients, the thymol, the seaweed, things of that nature, which it seems to be really helping with the bee's gut system. So
yeah, I can't speak good enough. I mean, I know there's a bunch of products out there, and there's probably the ones that are good, but I've had such tremendous success with it that last year I went all in on it. Previously, I just used as an emergency feeding plan for those that were struggling, but last year they all got at least 2, if not 3, applications of it, and my bees came out of winter looking the best they ever had, and they gave it the best crop ever. Of course, we know that the best crop ever, it could have been related to a lot of variables, weather and so
right.
forth, but they did come out of winter looking. Greg, you saw them last January 31st or
They're beautiful.
February 1st, whatever day it was, you saw them. And that day they looked like they were well into spring when you saw them. So,
And they were happy too. Like it wasn't just they all of a sudden were in a good place, like solid nutrition in that weather and some work to do. They were loving it.
Keith Spillman's been a loyal supporter of the stream team and of the expo and of basically the beekeeping community for many years now. Good friend Keith up there, Half Tracks Honeybees in North Carolina. He says lots of new folks, and that's true. There are a lot of people in here either that I have just met recently or I don't even recognize your name. And so we appreciate all of you for being here tonight and for participating and for all the comments, and it just helps the community grow even better, and we all are better for it. Be Amazing Hives Dave says, if you maintain the same numbers of hives of overwinter colonies and don't split, how often should you replace the queens? That's a great question. Greg, what do you think on that?
I think this is going to depend on how many colonies you're running, and if a 10% or even a 20% gain in brood is a deal breaker for you. But we've had queens be 4. I think we've even had them go 5 years old before. But they really start to drop off. They get into they're really in their prime, like the first part of that second year. They are gangbusters. From then on, they will slowly start to dwindle, and you'll see it on their wings. You'll see they'll kind of start to go bald. You'll start to see the number of bees that are kind of their entourage starts to dwindle, or they're less interested. Maybe she's not putting out quite as much pheromone. Maybe she's got damage to some glands on her body. So eventually over time, they get to the point to where, yes, they're in there. Yes, they accept her, but she's not quite fully doing all the job in the colony. And that's really important because this entire colony, this entire hive mind is largely based on, pheromone exchange. And when she is doing everything just like a rock star, everybody's happy. But if you're starting to dwindle, you'll start to lose that cohesiveness inside of the colony. And then it can get a little bit stressed. So there's not a real short answer on this, but I would say you do not have to replace your queen every year. If you've got less than 50 colonies, you probably don't need to worry about that. Less than 20 colonies, probably not. But every probably third year, I would consider bringing in a new queen. There's a lot of I think bogus conversation about genetics and freshening up the genetics and bringing in new genetics because of this fear mongering that if you have even less than 100 colonies, that somehow your genetic pool is going to be so slim and so tight that you're going to have inbreeding. That is absolutely a bunch of baloney. When you actually look into the alleles, the genetic sets of queens and drones, you'll see right away that the genetic expression possibilities are incredible. So you're not going to hardly get into that position unless you are intentional about that or you're inseminating intentionally for that. So I would say if you start to see a lack of brood rearing, lack of attention to the queen, and then maybe start to look at replacing her. But if you've got less than 50 colonies or less than 20 colonies and the bees are loving it, she's brooding up, they're making brood, they're making honey, they're getting through the wintertime, you don't have to get into a hurry. That being said, if I can, I try to replace as many queens as I possibly can every single year. And for the sole reason is we are always, if we can get a 10% gain in brood, we're going to get a noticeable gain in honey. That's going to be extra splits. That's going to be extra brood that we can move around to make queens with. So for me, it matters, and it's important. So it's largely based on your goals. And I know that was not really a short answer, but we could go way longer on that. What about you guys? What do you think?
Yeah, I personally, one thing I've noticed I'm kind of getting the queens dialed in just a little bit. Previously, I had just really didn't, I knew I had queens in the colonies. I wasn't really sure where the queens came from. I wasn't really sure how old the queens were. I still don't know 100%. A lot of them, swarm or they requeen themselves here or there. But what I noticed was I started getting the queens from Zach in Hawaii a couple of years ago. I think it was 2 years ago when I started. Well, those queens, let's see, maybe it was have I got them 3 years? Maybe whatever it is. First year they do great, and I think most queens are like this. They really blow it out. Good queens will do that. They'll blow it out, produce a lot of honey. And towards the 2-year mark, 1.5, 2-year mark, they still survive, but they may not be quite as strong. And so what's happening is in my bee yard, the queens I replaced like 2 years ago. Now we're starting to kind of fit. So those hives are kind of getting weaker if they didn't replace the queens. The ones I replaced last year are super strong coming into this year. So they're going to be so what I've got happening is it's just kind of a 2-year cycle type of a thing. So I think ideally, as close as you can do to replacing them yearly, that's good. Not that queens won't last longer. They will, like you said. But if you want to have peak performance, sometimes I think it's a good idea to have queens that are a little bit younger. Now, what I've noticed is that queens that are, it seems to me like sometimes if they have a little bit more time to get going, like queens that, for example, like maybe say I did some splits in the summertime, previous summer with solstice queens, post solstice queens, or like July, August type queens, man, they are at their peak when the spring hits. They are ready to rock and roll. The queens I get from Zach here in a few weeks, they'll build up. I'll get some honey off of them, but they won't have a chance to grow and be as strong and develop, build a hive up quite as much as the ones who have been in there since last summer. So it seems to me like queens that are probably, when a colony has been established for, 4 to 6 months, probably have a little better option or a little bit of ability to grow and expand and explode than those who have been in there for just a month or two. That makes a lot of sense just for sheer numbers and population and everything. So, but I think if you can replace them as often as possible, obviously everyone can't replace every queen every year. It's difficult to do that. But I do think young, vibrant queens are the best, in my opinion, the best way to go.
I would have to talk to Sawmill Charlie. I was chatting with him when I was out at his place, and I forget who it was that told him this data, but like they went through the life cycle of a queen, and as far as the drop off year by year of number of eggs laid out of that year. The first year, of course, it's just, she is going gangbusters. The second year, I think it was something like a 40% drop in number of eggs that were laid throughout the year. So if you're looking at that, like for those that do replace every year, and even if you do like a solstice queen, you figure then you carry her through that next spring flow, it's still within like a year timing. So I don't know like percentage for those solstice queens, how much they drop off, because like they lay a little bit and then, they're down for the winter. So I don't know how much that like skews the percentages. I'd have to ask him where he got that data. But
well, I think genetics matter too on that. It just, a lot of us who raise bees also raise some type of fowl as well. And what you'll notice, like with chickens, for instance, you can take a speckled Sussex and then you can take a white leghorn, and that white leghorn was going to outlay that speckled Sussex for a long time, and then eventually they're both are going to start to slow up. If you've ever called old hens who they are free lunchers, they're out, they're not laying any eggs anymore, but they're out there eating all the food and they're pasteurizing all the new young hens coming up. When you butcher them, you'll still have a huge string of eggs that are still in there. And they still had many, many more eggs to go. But as they get age, whether it was health, nutrition, environmental factors, or just their ability, they slowed all that down. I think what Bruce was kind of referring there too is if you take a straight, I think why Zach's queens do so well for Bruce is they're just brood monsters. They just are. If you could count the number of eggs per day, you would probably find that the line of Italians that Zach is working with, they excel rapid fire eggs. And they're probably laying more eggs per day than, let's say, a Caucasian would. Would the Caucasian have a slower drop off? Yes, but it's
right.
I think
It's
genetic
true,
matter on eggs per day, and then what your goals are. So with Bruce, you might have to replace those. You might have to replace those queens every year to maintain that vigorous brooding, if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah.
Well, too, DC has a good comment there. I mean, if I'm in the South, they're laying more throughout the season, regardless of genetics.
So many eggs. Yeah.
We know they're laying right now. They never stop. Even the Caucasians and Carniolans I've had in the past, they rarely shut off completely. And so, but anyway, that's so I personally I like to replace it, keep them as young as possible, but I just can't seem to get them all replaced every year. And I don't know that I really want to, but I like to have, I've just, Cayman taught me this principle years ago. We've talked about it over and over again. Young, vibrant, quality queens. That is where everything starts. You can do the nutrition, you do all that stuff, but the young, vibrant queens, that's where it starts. And so, I have people that will comment sometimes, I've got a queen that's 4 years old and she's still doing well. And hey, that's awesome. But when she begins to fail, they can crash in a hurry. Another thing here's another advantage to having younger queens is they're less swarm happy.
That's
you get a queen that's a year and a half to 2 years old. When that swarm season arrives, and she's going to be, if you don't watch them close, she's going to be in the trees. Yep. So that's one thing to think about too. You get a brand new queen in there that's like just brand new that spring, or even for the previous summer, maybe even a queen that's just a year old, and they're more worried about establishing the hive and the colony and establishing. They're more worried about that. But there's something about the pheromones. There's something about it. The bees are the ones, the worker bees, I think, are the ones that actually make that decision. I don't know that it's the queen.
Right.
And they start prepping her for swarming. So there's something about that queen before they go to swarm that they know they need to replace her. And so they'll go ahead and get her ready, and they'll have her lose weight, and they'll move on out of the colony. And so that's something you got to be careful about as well. But yeah, I think a young queen can swarm if they're swarm happy bees, or if they are super crowded. If they're super crowded, they can also swarm. But if you're managing them, a young queen is much less likely to swarm than an older queen. That's just been my experience too. So anyway, I hope that answered the question.
You've got maple blooming, so it's only a matter where the swarm prevention strategy is not that far. We're only a month away on these chats talking about it. We'll talk about it a lot more then. But when you can start talking about all the people who put so much time and effort into catching swarms, the last thing in the world that they want to hear, although it's the truth, is that more times than not, they're catching old queens. Those are old queens that they're catching in those swarms. And you're already starting with a poor performer. Yeah, they'll do great at first and drawing a bunch of comb because that's what they do. But long term, you've got a queen who's already 2, maybe 3 years old. Is that really what you want inside of a colony? Most of the time, not.
Especially those prime swarms, the first ones of the spring, the big ones. Lots of times they'll have a mated queen. Now, later in the season, you might have some cast-off swarms where they have virgin queens. That's a different problem when you have 6 virgin queens in a swarm. But Ken hit it right here. Ken Lebowitz, he said, we start swarm season in February most years here in Alabama. That's true. You'll start seeing some in February. Now, they really, February through the first couple of weeks of March, it's a little slow. And towards the end of March and on into April, it's crazy around here. There's swarms everywhere. And you'll have people posting on Facebook, hey, you know, a beekeeper, how can I get rid of these swarms? And you just have swarms everywhere around here. It's kind of crazy. But yeah, we're just probably, you know,
Unbelievable.
I've caught swarms in February here before, but it's not as common as it is a little bit later, but they do start to happen. You know, you got a big old colony in a tree somewhere. It's packed out, you know, and the red maple's bloomed and it gets warm and they just get all excited and they'll just swarm out. And one more little quick swarms, one more little strategy I incorporated last year is I've started putting my swarms in the same bee yard. It's not a bee yard only for swarms, but I put them in the same spot with some other bees, and I also mark those queens purple, so I watch them close. And if they look kind of ratty, they don't look good, they just don't have traits I like, they get mean or whatever, I replace the queen. And so I started marking those queens purple, and it was interesting to watch those. I think I caught 6 or 7 swarms last year or something like that. I don't know how many it was, and they were all totally different in their how they did. Had some that just fizzled out, some that did really well, and some that were just kind of mediocre, very average bees. And so when you catch swarms, that's what the risk you run. You just don't know the genetics you're getting. But to be fair, I have had some swarms early in my beekeeping days that started off with like a volleyball sized swarm that grew into 2 or 3 supers of honey for me. So you never know, but that's the thing, you just never know. And I'd rather be able to kind of help steer the direction of my bees a little better now that I've done it for a while.
Smart move on the quarantine yard. We'll talk about that in another month for sure.
Yeah, it's not 100% quarantine, but they are all in the same place. And so, yeah, it would be great to have a strictly quarantine yard. That would probably be a better idea. Beehive Homestead says, by the way, Greg, love the video on the honeydew honey from the lanternflies, right? Found out at our farm we had a hive that produced honeydew honey. And I watched that video today, actually, Greg. I tasted that stuff and it was definitely interesting. I don't know if I liked it. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't, but it was very interesting, that lanternfly honeydew honey.
I like the fluff because it's, I could see, there could be a lot of really neat products that you can make with that, capitalizing on that how strong and potent that flavor is. Especially, I could really see a cinnamon creamed honey made with that. I think that would be really nice. It's definitely a unique product. So shout out to Sourwood Farm, Ryan. There, it was great that he brought that by and got to share that. It was a fun video too. It was fun just to be in the moment with everybody, just checking it out, you know.
Yeah, I was at the honey bar and I was tasting. I tasted maybe 40-50% of those honeys. Just by the end of the time, I had a nice sugar high that probably got me to Nashville. But I was tasting them, and you know, every honey has a different taste. Some of them are real similar. You know, some states have obviously basswood. You know, maybe like say Wisconsin and Michigan may have that. You know what I'm saying? But you're going along, all of a sudden you get this lanternfly honey. I'm like, you taste that and it is a totally different taste. It's just a very bizarre taste. But anyway. Okay, so Grammy, thanks for the super chat, $9.99. Can't wait for spring. Well, Grammy is right here on us, Lisa. We're right here at it, so we won't be waiting very much longer. Appreciate the super chat, Lisa. We got Keith Spellman. Get your head wrapped around your plan and do it, and have a plan B, C, and D ready just in case. That is very wise words from Keith up at Half Tracks Honeybees, and I'm lucky to have my plan A, and so I hope I'm lucky to have a plan A and B. But some people are just way more organized than I am. But that is very wise. Great words of wisdom there, Keith. Oh, we got Bees in the Abyss. Thanks so much, Kevin, for the $10 super sticker there, super chat. Appreciate it, man. People don't realize how much that means to us to get these. Yeah. It's kind of it's reward for the work that we do put into this. 4 years of this. It also does help the channel, and it helps motivate us and helps us be able to move forward and continue to produce these videos and take the time to do it. It makes it worth it for us. We got Steve Amos. Did I miss one of those, Brian? I think I got them all, didn't I? Okay, Steve, for back massages, $20 for back massages after honey season. I probably need it.
Bruce is just going to be curling those 60-pound buckets, man. It's like you don't need kettlebells. You got buckets, man.
Yeah. The older I get, that body bar, Bruce's vicious body bar, that might help too. But the older I get, the more I might need that massage. I've been really feeling it lately a little bit. I'm feeling my age just a little bit.
I've been told that Bruce's bodacious body bars have an increased an elevated amount of testosterone. So it's almost like if you were to rub this on your biceps, it's almost like it's like topical steroids.
I heard they're
Yeah.
starting to sell shares in it now. It's
Oh yeah.
on the market now.
I mean,
Well, it's gonna have to be produced by somebody. Maybe I'll get Brian on that. I need to call Brian at Flower Street out there and see if he'll make up a bunch of them. We'll see if
And
we
by
can
the
get it.
way, Brian, we're not going to make it up there. Brian Zavato will be speaking at I believe the EMBA conference in St. Louis, and I think it's in February, put on by the Tom and Melissa and their crew out there in the St. Louis area. So if you can get out that way, I would encourage you to go check it out. And then just a quick little plug again, the stream team, Bruce, Brian, and myself will be up in Madison, Wisconsin here in just a couple weeks at the Midwest Honeybee Expo, and that is going to be a lot of fun. If you're going to go, let's go ahead and just throw this out there now. If you're a stream teamer and you're going to go up to the Madison, Wisconsin Expo, what we want you to do is we want you to shoot us a message with a question. Probably the easiest way is if you go to Nature's Image Farm, hit the About Us, the contact sheet there, shoot us a message. I'll make sure Bruce and Brian, they get those as well. But what we're going to do is send us a question. And if you're going to be there, we're going to select a few of those questions and we're going to bring you up on the stage with us. And we're going to do a segment, a Q&A, where we bring you on. We'll ask the question, we'll round table it, have a lot of fun that way. So
that'd be fun. Yeah, it'd be cool.
It's going to be a lot of fun to do this on a stage with a crowd. We're going to try to go live while we're there. If we have any tech issues, we'll at least going to capture it and we'll put that content out later. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And then I'll also looking forward to giving a panel discussion. Treatment free, is it farce or is it the future of beekeeping, with Nathalie B, Emily from BeeFit, and then Ryan Stern. We're going to really get in, dive deep. So it's going to be a great conversation from practitioners, some folks who have tried it. Does this thing scale? Where is it at? What does it even mean? Is treatment free a farce? Or is it going to be the future? So it's going to be a great talk. Midwest Honeybee Expo up in Madison, Wisconsin. I'm sure there'll be links floating around here somewhere. And I believe that's February. I'm thinking 7th and 8th, 6th, 7th, something like that Friday, Saturday.
Carol McCarthy says, Bruce, I agree. As a kid, we had sweet corn day and apple day, honey day. Families sadly don't do that anymore. We were talking about the community, the fellowship of the honey harvest. Growing up, we would do stuff like that too. We would pick the corn, cut the corn, all the things you do with the harvesting of the garden. And I agree, those are some good times. But we've kind of recreated that with our honey harvest each year, and it's just a phenomenal fun time for us. Let's see here. It says Justin Strom says being prepared is half the battle. We were talking about that earlier.
Yeah,
that is true. Here's a question that Glade actually answered too. He says, how do you each store your drawn honey supers? And I'll put Glade's answer up here. He says, and this is how I do it as well, he uses Enos moth ice crystals is what I use, not just the mothballs, the ice crystals. The active ingredient is paradichlorobenzene. It's the same thing as paramoth, and it is safe for what it does is it'll destroy, it'll keep the moths from reproducing. What you do is you put it in the boxes when you store them. You seal them up the best you can, and then they will gas off. By the time you pull the boxes off in the spring, in my experience, it's all gassed off, and so you don't really have issues with it. And then you let it, ideally let it air out for a little while, and it goes right on the hives, no problems. And but it will, if you're in an area that stays warm or you're concerned about the moths getting into it, you may need to treat them like when you store them in the late summer whenever you harvest, and then maybe again in the winter time. I personally just store them when I do it. I've got 260, 70 boxes to store. I'm not going to take all those boxes down and retreat. But I've got some videos on the channel. Just type in Bruce's Bees, honey box storage or something like that. Super storage, and a video come up there where I show how I do that. But do you guys have any tricks of the trade as far as storing your honey supers?
I'm super irresponsible. All mine gets we get them intentionally get them robbed out, and then we either stack them up on their side and just layer them like they're and put them on a skid, and then get them up against the side of like a sea container or something like that, where we can still have light and air going through it. And for the most part, we've got very little issues there.
Yeah.
Maybe some mice would be the worst case, but we could certainly be doing better, but we don't really experience enough loss to where it's like, okay, we definitely have to do something different. But if I were going to get more serious about protecting that comb, which I should, I would be doing what Bruce and Glade does for sure.
I stack mine, and I don't use any of the paramoth or anything like that. Right now in Ohio, we have the largest freezer in the United States.
That's true.
That's true. Yeah.
Now,
so if they haven't damaged them by now, they're probably not going to damage them. Jason Egan, he's out in Utah. He says he found hundreds of wax moth larvae throughout his garage and plastic bins, cardboard boxes, etc. They were everywhere except his hive equipment. And they will find their way in somehow. If you can put them in garbage bags, you can put them in bins. I like to use the ice crystals. Now, I will and kind of like Mike Berry says this, Greg, you kind of mentioned it. Honestly, if there's no brood comb in there, like if it's strictly honey supers and the brood has not touched it, they're less likely to be attacked by wax moths, especially if they are exposed to light and air. But it's hard when you get a bunch of them. It's hard to really store them like that. Some people do, but that's what I do. I use the ice crystals like Glade suggested, but if you don't have a lot of them, if they're only been exposed to honey, like if you put a queen excluder on, the queen is not laid up there. If they've got air and light going through them, they typically will do pretty well. You may lose a few, but you won't lose very many that way. And freezing them, some people freeze them as well. But like you guys said, you guys aren't having any problems with them getting frozen up in Ohio right now. Like we mentioned earlier, Highland Honey says buy once, cry once, quality matters. We talked about that for a little while there. Paul at Hell Hive says if the only there's somewhere you get no paint, no rod, no hassle boxes.
Thanks, Paul, for that shameful plug. Yeah.
Maybe there's someone on this chat that can get those for you.
Taglines are sticking, that's for sure.
John Lawler says you may have the money, but the bees still have to draw out the new frames out. That's true. And I think you were talking about the infinity frames at that time, Brian. And so that is true. They do have to draw them out, but you get frames that are waxed well and good quality frames, and the bees will draw them out pretty quick anyway. Of course, if you got comb, it's probably best, but they got to draw them out sometimes. Steve Amos says you won't to DC. He says you won't regret getting wax dip boxes. I hate painting and I don't have time. That's a key thing right there, is just the time. Some people, they enjoy the putting the boxes together, painting them, dipping them, whatever. But I personally, I'm past all that. I don't want to paint boxes or try to dip them myself or put them together. I just like to buy them already put together and wax dipped and ready to go. And hopefully they'll last me for a lot of years. That's the plan anyway. Got a super chat from Justin Strom here. Thanks for your info, guys. Bruce, I'm liking your new live streams. Thanks, man. I'm doing some Let's Talk Bees live streams. Kind of don't have a specific date or time I'm doing those, but just if I kind of get an idea, I like to hop on and do those. And we had a really nice one with Cayman the other night. If you get a chance to go back and look at it, it's under the live section on my channel or the playlist Let's Talk Bees, and really a lot of good information about mite treatments. Once again, for those who weren't on earlier, Cayman and I talked about all the different, pretty much everything organic, synthetic, and alternative treatments. We tried to kind of hit everything we could think of, and Cayman's real knowledgeable on that. And it was a little bit biased, but not too biased. And I think it was pretty objective. And well, everything's subjective, but it was pretty well laid out, I think. And hopefully people can consider what they want to do and figure out what's best for them. Okay, we got.
I sit at home and I randomly get text messages saying, "Can you get on your computer?"
Yeah, Brian was in the back office helping us out. He came out at the end and we talked a little bit, but yeah, Brian, because I have a hard time like keeping up with the comments on these things when I'm doing it by myself. And Brian did a great job helping us out, and it went well. Have any of you tried harvesting honey at different times of the year? This is from Davis Acres Dancing Bees, like clover, pumpkin, sunflower, etc. I personally just harvest wildflower honey a couple times a year typically, and I know probably what it mostly is, but it's not for a specific crop. Do you guys try to capture a specific crop, or do you just pretty much harvest the wildflower stuff?
The seasons. I don't have specifics. It's just I harvest by the season.
I
We
think it's
try to here because we have a tremendous autumn olive flow. With all this weird, wacky weather, there's always a silver lining. And one of the big changes in the last 4 years or so is the autumn olive prolificness. So it creates a beautiful, real clear, sweet, mild nectar that's just ahead of like a real big flow. So it's a beautiful, like comb building, brood rearing, and they start to store some of that away, but it kind of primes them for blackberry. If we can get blackberry and locust off, I mean, that is just prime honey. It just has a beautiful nose to it. It most of the time our blackberry kind of has almost a peachy, a very fruity kind of a flavor. And so I definitely want to get that, if I can, get that off first and get that separate from the summer honey. The summer honey is great, but it's wild. It's mostly clover and another wildflower, which is still beautiful, great honey, but it's different. It's different in color, different in flavor. And then, of course, the fall is we definitely make sure we're trying to be smart and is not be so greedy and not even really full with fall flow. Just we try to take off early in the year, treat or manage accordingly, and then leave the fall honey on. But this lanternfly thing is kind of now another little wrinkle in the perceived plan because it's happening in like June, July, going into August. So if you're waiting on to see what the bees are doing with wildflower or clover, if it's going to hit or going to fill anything else before we go into that dearth, and you're waiting on ironweed and things of that nature, you know, the lanternfly is right in that time frame, and it's kind of can get stuck up in the supers right as goldenrod. You're ready to get it off before goldenrod. So I try to. It's not a steadfast rule, but if you can start to separate your honeys, what you'll notice is the flavor profiles. But your customers may also say, "Wow, I really love your spring," or "I really love your summer," and you can really kind of sometimes knock their socks off with a flavor profile that they've never experienced before because you were able to pull it off.
Yeah, let's see. I think too on that, on second thought, you know, it's hard to know, like you try to get a specific crop, and unless you're in an area where, like, for example, you can put beehives on the Apalachicola down here. You can get Tupelo honey. That's pretty much all that's blooming, I think. I'm sure there's other stuff, but it's really hard if you live in an area where there are a bunch of different things blooming. You can kind of have an idea of what's coming in, but you don't know for sure. And so to call something a specific type of honey, I'm not sure. I don't feel real comfortable with that here because we just have, you know, our main flows are the privet and the tallow, but there's other stuff. Like we got clover blooming, several different flowers blooming around, and we got tulip poplar depending on where the bees are. And so I just call mine wildflower. Even sometimes when we're harvesting it, you can see in the bottling tank or in the uncapping tank, you'll have like the light colored honey, and then you'll have like the dark colored honey kind of running in together and swirling. It's just what it is. So light colored honey typically here is the spring honey. The more amber color is the tallow. But anyway, so that's kind of where we're at here. But I don't know. I don't think to call it like a specific type. It doesn't have to be it's not like 100%. It's like a pretty small percentage to call it a certain type of honey when they analyze it.
I just call it spring, summer, or fall. I don't get into saying it's a this.
Absolutely.
It's a that. There's no way you can say. That's like saying you've got organic bees or organic honey or any. I mean, that's semantics.
I'll tell you though, if I do notice, like late August, September-ish, I think that's when they're saying the lanternfly will hit up here. If I do notice a different flow at that timing of the year, when typically we do not have a flow. If I do extract it and I do notice that it's more leaning towards that lanternfly, I may, instead of saying that's fall, I may switch it up and just say, hey, this is a hint of lanternfly. So,
Yeah.
but who knows? And we'll see. So
Yeah, man, I hope that thing doesn't come down here. I kind of like what I got going on, but we'll see.
Oh, you'll know it when you get it.
Yeah, man. Greg, any sales on your feeder buckets?
Yeah, they're on our website right now. We've got packages actually are an incredible price right now. Those prices will go up. We have nukes on there as well. If you're looking for like a volume of buckets, shoot us a message and we'll get you some custom pricing. Same with any bee clubs. If you are part of a bee club or you're a president of a bee club, or a vice president and maybe even a Mr. Vice President, and you want to help get your club some good packages at a great price, have them reach out to us and we'll see if we can work with them to get them some good pricing. But Davis Acres Dancing Bees, if you're looking for feeder buckets, shoot us a message and work on getting you some pricing.
Mm-hmm.
And on that note, Gary at West, I think that's Gary from West Virginia. I'm pretty sure it is. Makes a great comment here. Just don't get wax coated boxes. It only lasts a couple of years and you can't paint over the wax. There is a bunch of knockoffs all over Amazon, Temu, you name it, where it is a bunch of wax coated junk paraffin boxes, and you will be buying that over and over again. All the Hoovers, the Bee Castles, all of those, the names always change. Ironically enough, those you're going to be buying those over again, and there's a lot of wax dipped in the U.S. That's coming from paraffin or those 50-50 blends, and you might have some trouble with those results as well. And we'll talk more about that later. But I want to thank Gary from West Virginia for that comment.
Lisa has an order she'd like to let you know about, Greg. She wants 20 of the Enduro Hive medium boxes.
All right.
So if you can
Lisa, thank you. Let me make an official an order.
Just shoot her with an email with the invoice, please, she says.
You got it, Lisa.
20 Enduro Hive mediums.
Do you want those Propola or do you want those Pura, or does it matter? Whatever we have, or do you have a preference? You just let me know and we'll make sure to get those to you. For the honey supers, I mean, Propola is nice if you're overwintering with supers on, because it's just that much more of a propolis envelope. But if you're not overwintering with the mediums and they're just on and off for supers, you can save yourself the $5 or $6. If it's really about the budget, save yourself $5-6 and go with the Pura instead of the Propola. But we're trying to make sure we offer those where it's so close, even like $5 or $6 difference, where if it's not going to break the budget, just to go ahead and get it, and you'll have that option. But Lisa, I'm making an official note here that way I can get it to the big boss and she can make sure that we get all that organized for you. So thank you for your order, Lisa.
Justin Strom says, Bruce, when do you start adding supers? I kind of monitor as it goes along. Usually it's like right towards the end of June or early April. It'll also depend on the splits and how quickly they grow after that. But typically late March, early April, which I'm going to try and get my mite treatments in, extended mite treatments, my Apivar 2.0s in the next week or two. And that timing will be just about right to do that. So that's kind of my goal right now. But the really honey just starts coming in here in April, pretty strong. The spring flow is kind of hit or miss. The bees are building up. I think they're eating a lot of that nectar as it comes in and using it. They don't have a lot of extra to store. They do store some each year, but typically sometimes they don't. But boy, in about May is when they really start slapping it in there like crazy. Mid-May, for about 3 or 4 weeks when the tallow comes in, they just can fill up boxes so fast it's unbelievable. Let's see what happened. Brian, did you?
That was the last comment.
Okay.
The Justin one.
Well, we appreciate everyone coming on tonight. It's been another fun stream team, and we've had a good number of people in here tonight, and we appreciate. I did recognize a lot of names, but I saw some names I had not seen before.
Yeah,
saw a lot of new folks in here, so we appreciate you being in here. If you've checked in before, if not, we just appreciate the support, and we love doing this thing. As we're working on, we're 4 years plus now, and so we're moving into our 5th year. So we definitely we've got let's address this comment. We got red exclamation points here. Are you guys giving up on VSH queens, and how's your experience been with them?
Brian,
But he asked before and we didn't answer, so I guess that's why. Brian?
I tried them. I think part of my problem up here is I tried them, saw absolutely no difference in my mite washes from one colony to the next. I was told that because I got virgin queens, I need to basically set up like a 5 or so year program to basically flood my area with those genetics. And I don't want to dedicate that time. Plus, where my colonies are at, I know there are feral colonies and that out there. So it's like, for me to buy these special queens, and I saw absolutely no difference from one colony to the next, I just thought, I'll stick with what I've been doing.
Yeah.
So,
Greg, do you want to comment?
Not really.
Just if it is fine if you don't want to.
I mean, here's what I'll say.
I could say this.
Go ahead, Brian.
No, I was just going to say, so here, hang on one second. It's the 21st. So if, how do you, Rue Hall, I can't even say the whole name. Rue Hall mode, I can't say the whole thing. But next week, Wednesday, January 28th at 8 p.m. on the Nature's Image Farm live chat.
Oh, Brian, don't do that to me. What are you doing? Here, look. Here, let's call him, her, whoever that is, 9859. Let's just say it like this. Go to the Nature's Image Farm. Sorry, I'm a mushmouth. The Nature's Image Farm YouTube channel. There's a video there, and it says, "Are VSH bees racist?" I would encourage you to check out that video because a lot of what I have to say, I had that conversation with Corey. What I'll tell you in short is 100% bees are racist, and that there can be some extreme challenges introducing Italian VSH virgins to your carnies, to Russians. There is some major hurdles there, and there are some major attitude problems that you may find with those queens. In no way am I saying everybody working with VSH that they fall under this umbrella category. I'm just simply telling you, with the thousands of dollars that I've invested, isolated out yards, intentional breeding, and even getting down into the F4 daughters of those lines, I can tell you that the program had a very abrupt end when one day I was so upset with what I was seeing that I cracked every lid in that isolated yard, and I dropped queen cells in every single one of them and eliminated that from our genetic possibilities in that specific yard. That wasn't my first attempt with VSH. That was actually my second, with two very reputable, well-known breeders. And what this actually touches on is something that has nothing to do with the breeders themselves. It has to do with things that I don't think we fully quite understand or get a grip on. But I think the vehicle for those genetics coming in virgins, I think, can be extremely problematic, number one. And then number two, what it is that they're actually expressing, how heritable they actually are, and then what trade-offs you get because of that. Those are things that nobody talks about. But for us, we can't have aggressive bees, and I don't use that word loosely, but bees that find you and swirl and they blast you in the face. We weren't going to have that. This touches on a part that it gets me fired up, because it's also gets into the treatment-free aspect of beekeeping. And there are folks 100% that I believe, without a shadow of a doubt, who are doing treatment-free, and it actually is working for them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But I don't know that actually translates to every biome, to every variance in soil microbiology, and every region of the country. These little nuances do matter. And so because of that, the results that I had with VSH led to me totally abandoning that part of the program 100% completely. And I won't be going back for me doing that. But that in no way, shape, or form is to discourage you from trying it. I just found the grass was not greener on the other side, that everything that I actually have and need was already in my own genetic stock. And so I decided to put the time and the effort into that. So I just want to be careful. And I know I've already said it, Bruce. I know you're ready to get on with the conversation. In no way, shape, or form do I want my opinion or thoughts that I've just shared here cast any shade on anybody who is breeding those things or from trying it. But I want to be very clear that I was not fully aware of what it is that I was working with until I understood their behavior, their attributes, the trade-offs, and it actually put those bees backwards in time. And I think if you look at Bruce's channel, or if you look at Brian's channel with Randy Oliver, we actually talked about that. What actually can happen with the Frankenstein genetics that can happen, where it can revert back to the worst case performance, genetically speaking, when you bring some of those unlike genetics together. That's all I'm going to say for now. Hope I was clear enough and nice enough about it.
Tom at Via Honeybee says VSH is a good thing, but be careful with breeders who claim VSH and don't display those traits. You can test for it in your colonies. There's some truth to that. I actually gave it a try as well. The truth is the bees here in Alabama, the feral bees, are pretty tough, pretty rugged, pretty mite resistant, but they're mean as they can be. And so that's one reason I've tried to kind of replace those. Excuse me. Maybe I'm not supposed to talk. But I've tried some specifically. How about that? A frog in my throat. I've tried some of those specific VSH queens, and they were good, strong colonies, but they were a little spicy. And I've just found a line I like with Zach's queens. They've just worked for me, so that's what I'm kind of rolling with now. And not that I'm not going to try their genetics. I've got some other ones coming in too. I'm going to try a little bit. I've got some of Greg's right now that are doing well in my operation as well, but Zach's queens have all the qualities I like. The only thing that they, and he's actually working, I think, on the mite thing a little bit, but I don't mind treating my bees. I just don't mind it. So I'm just going to find bees that have the traits I like, that build up when I want them to, that produce honey that I want them to. And then, I'm going to just go ahead and treat them. It doesn't bother me to treat bees. It's okay. Obviously, if you didn't have to treat them, that would be better. But I don't have a problem with it. So, my goal is not my focus is VSH. I'm just trying to get bees that'll produce honey for me and be good, strong bees. And hopefully one day they'll have that where it has all the traits we need. I know, Greg, you've got your bees are tough bees. They do well. But you don't claim VSH. But a lot of people, the queen breeders that breed from the best, like Randy Oliver, Greg, you, and so many others, if you breed from the best bees that you have, that have the traits that you like, ultimately you can probably breed some of that mite control into your bees. But if you are looking strictly for the mite resistance to start off with, you kind of ignore the other things, then you might end up with a bee that you don't necessarily like. And I think that a lot of people I think a lot of people are working on that, and a lot of these VSH breeders are working on that, and it's getting there. But we just got some time to go.
Randy started, what was it, like 10 years ago now? And after all of his colonies, he had one colony that hit the mark. And from that, he's kept at it and at it and at it. And where he's at now, it's like a decade's work. And then, like Steve said, he has a completely isolated area where he can control the drones, he can control everything. Yeah. So you have to take that into consideration.
Still, I think, as I understand it, 50-50 still after all that work and dedication and isolated yards. And so it's, I think we'll end up talking a lot about this. Maybe we'll touch on this maybe next week. But the absolute things that nobody talks about with VSH is the ugly attitudes. Are these results actually heritable? And then what are the big trade-offs that you get I could go on ad nauseum about what I had found. If had I known what I know now, I would never have gone that route at all. I would
Mhm.
have I would spent that time and that money and the effort and to continue to fine tune my bees. But what I did learn were things that folks, very smart folks, very smart breeders, were already telling me and warning me, saying, "What are you doing bringing in any other stock? You already have a great genetic line. Keep refining that." That's what I should have done from the very beginning. But we all want to do better. We all want to put our best foot forward. And sometimes we think the grass is greener on the other side, and we bring something in. And sometimes that is good. And sometimes there are folks who have outstanding results using those same VSH lines. So um, it's a buyer beware kind of a thing. And I don't even think buyers know what they're getting, especially when it's in a virgin format. People don't understand what that is or is not for their yard. They just think I'm going to get 1 or 2 or 10 or 20 of these. I'm going to bring them in here and I'm going to magically flood my area with these drones. And then just 2 or 3 short years, I'm going to have all this genetic expression. Anyways, that's not the case. I'm going to jump down off the pulpit because we're already over 2 hours. And the last thing anyone needs for me to do this late in the evening is to get fired up on something. But anyways,
Greg, you're not passionate about anything, are you?
I think I'm going to quit beekeeping and just become maybe I'll just become a preacher.
Well, listen, we appreciate everyone coming on tonight. We're going to wrap it up here. Brian, in a minute or two, what do you got scheduled or planned for the next few days?
2 words. Stay warm.
That sounds like a good plan to me. Greg, how about you, man? Or I'm next. Greg, you can close it up. Let me go ahead and go. So I'm going to be trying to get, if the mite treatments get here, I'm going to try and start getting them in this weekend and just actually starting to assess where I'm at because, either the second or third week of February, we're going to be doing a bunch of splits. And so I got to just I haven't been in them since before the expo. So it's been it's been a little while now. So yeah, I need to get in them. But did I go in them again? I may have peeked in on a few after that. I'm not sure. I can't remember what I did. Anyway, all I know is I got a lot coming up to do, and I got to check on them, see what the strength is. I'll be doing probably a few mite checks, just checking to see how they're doing. Hopefully, they're as strong as I think they are. If they are, then we'll be in pretty good shape. If not, then I might have to figure out some other solutions for all the stuff I have planned. But exciting time here in Alabama. We are a few weeks ahead of most of you guys out there. If you're up north, but that's what I'm doing is just trying to continue to get ready and prep. And boy, that second or third week of February is going to be when we hit the ground running. And I do look forward to seeing many of you who are going to be up at the Wisconsin, Midwest Expo up in Wisconsin. It's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be cold, and this Alabama boy's going to have a hard time, but we'll survive. So with that, Greg, I'll turn it over to you to close it out tonight.
We want to thank everybody for spending some time with us. There's a bunch of new folks, so that's exciting and encouraging. As we get into the season, I think that's what we're going to see. We're going to see the views pick up. We're going to see a lot of new folks kind of come into this community. So I would just encourage everyone here in the comments and our kind of longtime listeners, as you see, new people coming in, give them a little bit of your time. They may ask questions that we've already answered a million times, things like that. But let's do what we can to help people along, meet them where they're at in their journey with beekeeping. And let's show that love that we have for the bees to these folks coming in and be a support network for them, rather than trashing them for questions that you might think is silly or asking the questions that you think are ridiculous. It's all about putting one foot in front of the other and doing the best we can, working together to kind of do that. So I think it's going to be a great, fun year with the Stream Team. A lot of great things on the horizon. Like Bruce just said, the Midwest Honeybee Expo up in Madison, Wisconsin. Shout out to Doug and Bill and their entire team for putting that thing on. The Stream Team we're honored to have been invited to come up there as speakers to present, but to do it in a fun way, which is the Stream Team Beekeeping Chat live in front of, I guess it's a studio, conference, convention, expo audience. It's going to be really cool. If you're going to be up there, and you've got a question, We're going to take a handful of questions and we're going to bring you up on the stage with us and have some fun with that. If you have those questions, go over to naturesimagefarm.com, click on the About Us, shoot us a contact message through there. I'll make sure Bruce and Brian get that. We'll review all those questions and we'll select a handful of folks to come up with us. And we'll get to do this together, but live and in person. It's just nothing better than that. So that's going to be awesome. From there, Nature's Image Farm speaking, we're looking forward to visiting with our friends at the West Virginia Bee Fair, the Spring Summit. That's going to be a lot of fun too. We'll have more information on that on our Facebook and our website and things like that. But I love to be able to get in front of folks and just share this passion. As you guys can probably tell, I get fired up when it's things that I love, things that I'm passionate about, things that we've had experience, good and bad. And I don't mind sharing the good, bad, and ugly. Matter of fact, a lot of the talks that we give across the country is just that hard lessons learned. It might be hard lessons learned growing an apiary. It might be hard lessons learned rearing queens. It might just be hard lessons learned in general with beekeeping. But we've got to be able to share the good and the bad, all the things in between. And I think that's really what it means to be a lighthouse to folks with this beekeeping world is to share the nitty gritty. And I think when we're able to do that, we're also able to be honest on to where that piece comes from, where that source of this comes from. And we can give glory and credit to God for all these things, these blessings, these opportunities, these bugs in a box. For us, that is the main thing. You'll see Bruce and you'll see Brian and myself, whatever your perception of us is, good, bad, or indifferent, whatever you think that you see us in our journey with the bees, I can tell you with a shadow of a doubt that all three of us give credit to God for this opportunity to be keepers of these bees, called for this mission in life, and for us and for you guys to share that with us all. It is such an honor. So from all of us here at the Stream Team, we just want to thank all of you for your support over all these years, whether it's on our website buying packages, nukes, boxes, whether it's supporting Bruce and his bees and maybe the bodacious Bruce bars coming soon to a Whole Foods near you. You just never know. And Brian out there slinging honey, visiting with markets, being involved in local bee clubs. We're having a lot of fun with this, and it is an absolute honor to do this thing that we feel called to do. And so from all of us here at the Stream Team, we just want to thank all of you for joining in on this journey as we just do better and try to be the best beekeepers that we can. Next week, we'll be on the Nature's Image Farm YouTube channel. We'll probably get fired up about one or two things. We'll take some questions. It's going to be a lot of fun. We'll see you next Wednesday, 8 o'clock, Nature's Image Farm YouTube channel. And until then, we want to remind you to be the lighthouse and be the change you want to see in this world. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.